Alrighty, so here we go. Chapter 5 review. And this is actually our test 4. All right, let me let one in real quick. Alrighty, y'all. So the first one here, simplify by removing factors of 1. All right, y'all, let me get my chat real quick. So Jasona, if you're taking notes of what we're doing, you're not required to do the review. It's not a grade. So that's optional either way you go. All right, y'all. So let's see. The first 4 are going to be simplified by removing factors of 1. So for number 1, we got 14q to the 8th over 18q to the 9th. So the trick on this problem is to reduce the fraction. Since it don't divide, you want to reduce the fraction. And then remember, on the variables, we're going to take this larger exponent and subtract the smaller exponent from it and leave the q where the larger exponent was. So let's start with the 14 and 18. Both of the numbers here are even numbers, so we know they're both going to divide by 2. So dividing both these numbers by 2, we're going to get a 7 on top and a 9 on the bottom. And then no other factors are common, so we know we've reduced our numbers as far as we can go. Now on the variables, the q has a bigger exponent in the bottom, so the q will stay in the bottom. And then all we're going to do is take the 9 and subtract 8 from it, and that'll be the exponent on the q. So let's see, 9 minus 8 leaves us 1. So y'all, technically that's a 7/9 q to the first. But in Math Lab, you don't have to write that 1. So I will just put this as a 7 on top and then a 9q on the bottom. All right, same thing on number 2. Simplify by removing factors of 1. They have a 2c minus 8 all over 2. So the trick on this one, since you've got 2 terms on the top, is to try to factor that top. And the only thing we can do to this top is factor out a greatest common factor. And the greatest common factor between 2 and 8 would be a 2. So what we're going to do, we're going to factor out that 2 and then put what we get after we divide both of these by 2 into parentheses. So the 2c divided by 2 leaves you a c, minus the 8 divided by 2 leaves a 4. And then on bottom, I still have my 2. Now that we've got it factored, the 2's will now cancel. So those 2's cancel, making a 1 basically. Now, all that's left is that c minus 4. And we actually don't have to put that in parentheses no more, since that's all that's left. So our final answer would be a c minus 4. Same thing on number 3. Simplify by removing factors of 1. They got a 5x minus 30 over 5x plus 30. So both of these have 2 terms. And remember, this ain't an x squared, so we don't have none of that perfect square stuff going on, since we just had single x's. So once again, all we can do to the top and the bottom is factor out a greatest common factor. So on top, greatest common factor between 5 and 30 would be a 5. In parentheses, 5x divided by 5 leaves the x, minus 30 divided by 5 leaves us 6. And the bottom pretty much looks the same. I still got a 5x and a 30. Only difference is this one's being added, but it still has the same GCF of a 5. So I break out that 5. This time what I get, 5x divided by 5 leaves me to x, plus 30 divided by 5 leaves me a 6. So if you notice, the 5s cancel, creating a 1 again. Nothing we can do with that x minus 6 over to x plus 6. They do not have the same sign, so they will not simplify. So our final answer will be a x minus 6 over x plus 6. Once again, since this was all that was left on top and bottom, I do not need those parentheses, okay? So number 2 and 3 were really factoring out greatest common factors and then getting that final answer. Number 4, same instructions, remove factors of 1. But y'all, this time I got a p squared minus 36 over a p squared minus 12p plus 36. So now we got p squareds on these two problems. So notice the top is a p squared minus 36. This is the difference of perfect squares. So we're going to put 2 parentheses. The p squared means a p in front of both of the parentheses. Remember, they're going to factor into conjugate pairs. One will be positive, one will be minus, since that last number is negative. And then the square root of 36 is 6. So we would put a 6 in each parentheses. All right, so on the bottom, I got a p squared minus 12p plus 36. That's going to factor into 2 parentheses. P squared will put a p in front of both parentheses. The last sign's positive on this. So when the last sign's positive, both of these factors will have the same sign as the middle number. So both of these factors will be negative. And then I'm looking for factors of 36 that'll add to get a 12. So if you write out your factors, you'll see that 6 times 6 are factors of 36 that add to 12. So I'm going to put in my 6's. All right, so now we're factored. So what's going to happen? This p minus 6 on top will cancel with one of these p minus 6's on the bottom. So since them factors cancel out, my final answer will be a p plus 6 on top over a p minus 6 on the bottom. Once again, I do not need parentheses around the top and the bottom of this fraction, okay? All righty, y'all. Then number 6 here. Multiply and simplify. One time, my bad. This is number 5. Multiply and simplify. So I got a y squared minus 36 over 5y plus 40. That's going to multiply by a y plus 8 over a y minus 6. So y'all, the trick on this, we can't do nothing with this y plus 8 and y minus 6. Nothing we can do to those. But the top, that y squared minus 36, That's perfect squares. The only thing they did was made, instead of a p on it, they gave me a y squared minus 36. The bottom, these two terms, we're going to factor out a GCF. Okay, because 5 and 40 both have a 5 in common. So let's work on the top first. The y squared minus 36 will give me a y plus and a y minus. Square root of 36 is a 6. On bottom, 5y plus 40. The greatest common factor between 5 and 40 is a 5. So in parentheses, 5y divided by 5 leaves me a y plus 40 divided by that 5 leaves me an 8. Now, like I said, the right side at the moment, we couldn't do nothing to. So I'm going to bring those down. All right, so anything on either top can cancel with anything on either bottom. So the first thing I noticed, this y minus 6 will cancel with that y minus 6 on the bottom. Then this y plus 8 on top will cancel with that y plus 8 on the bottom. So all that's left on top is a y plus 6. So remember, I don't need parentheses. And y'all, the only thing left on bottom is our 5. So the trick on this, factor the perfect squares, factor out the GCF, and then start canceling. All right, y'all, this next one. Divide and simplify. So number 6, divide and simplify. I got an x squared minus 4 over x squared minus 8x plus 16. We're dividing that by 7x minus 14 over x squared minus 2x minus 8. So y'all remember this. The first thing I did when I was dividing, I brought down the first fraction, just like it looks. Turned from division into multiplication. And then we flipped our second fraction so that we get a x squared minus 2x minus 8 all over our 7x minus 14. And y'all, let's see here. I'm going to start factoring. So I got perfect squares here. I can factor this into 2 parentheses. I can factor the top right into 2 parentheses. And then down here, since I just got a 7x minus 14, all we can do to this one is bring out a greatest common factor. So if you don't have those x squared terms, think GCF on those, okay? So let's start with the top. X squared minus 4. That's perfect squares, and you're going to see perfect squares a lot on this test, notice. But that'll give me an x plus and an x minus. Square root of 4 is 2. So I put a 2 in each of those parentheses. On the bottom, the x squared minus 8x plus 16, that's going to factor into 2 parentheses. X squared is an x and an x. The 16 is positive, so both those factors will be negative like the middle number. And then factors of 16 that'll add to get me an 8 would be 4 and 4. All righty, on the top right, x squared minus 2x minus 8, that's going to factor into 2 sets of parentheses. X squared is an X and an X. The last sign is negative, so that means we'll have unlike signs on our factors. And remember, since that last one's negative, I want factors of 8 that subtract to get 2. Well, y'all, that'd be what? 4 and 2. The larger number will be negative like the middle number. So the 4 will be negative and the 2 will be positive. All right, now here we got to look for a GCF between 7 and 14. So the greatest common factor would be 7. So bring down that 7 parentheses. 7x divided by 7 leaves you an x minus 14 divided by that 7 leaves me a 2. So anything on either top can cancel with anything on either bottom. So let me see, this x plus 2, there's nothing down here, but the x minus 2 on top cancels with the x minus 2 on the bottom. All right, let's see what else I got. I got an x minus 4 on the bottom. That'll cancel with this x minus 4 on the top. So y'all, since the x plus 2s are both on the top, they don't cancel. So now, since I got 2 factors left on top, I'm going to put them in parentheses. So I'll have x plus 2 times x plus 2, all that over. Well, all that's left on the bottom is an x minus 4 and a 7. So I'm just going to put my 7 first and then my x minus 4. So usually when you got a single number left, they like them sort of in the front on those. All right, y'all, nothing else to do to that. So we are done. And you'll notice in the answer blanks, it'll say leave it in factored form, which is what we got here, okay? All right, y'all, so let me turn the page and we will start finding the least common multiples. And let's see, I got 1, 2, looks like we got 3 of this. So for these examples, we're going to find the LCM, our least common multiple. So let's see, I'm on number 7, it looks like. So for 7, they're giving me 98 and 28. So big numbers like this, I'm going to break these down like I showed y'all into factor trees, and then we'll multiply to get our least common multiple. So 98, if you was to break that down, I know that's an even number. So let's see, that'd be what, 2 times 49. And then the 49 will break into a 7 times 7. So 98 would be 7 times 7 times 2. Then I'm going to break down that 28. That'll be 7 times 4. And then my 4 would turn into a 2 and a 2. Now you could have started with 7 and 4, 14 and 2, but they'll all break down to the same numbers eventually. So my least common multiple, member, let me start with the 7s. I got 2 7s here and 1 7 here. Remember, you got to go with the most times it happens. So since it happens twice here, we need 2 7s. On the 2s, I got 1 2 here and 2 2s here. So the most that the 2s happen in any denominator is twice. So we need 2 2s. So y'all, all we got to do now is multiply all these together. And if you multiply 7 times 7 is 49. Times 2 is 98. Times 2 would give us the least common multiple of 196. But y'all remember, let me go to the calculator real quick, because I want to show y'all that if you got that app, on that one, hit the math button. arrow right until NUM is highlighted on the top. Once that NUM is highlighted, arrow down and find LCM. Hit enter. And then put in your two numbers. We had a 98, comma, 28. Once we hit enter, we get our LCM of 196. Now, number eight's the same thing, except they're throwing some variables on this one. So I got a 28, Y3, X7, and I have a 4, Y6, X9. All right, so now let me find that least common multiple. So if you want to, you can break the 28 down into 7 times 4. And the 4s will give me a 2 times 2. The 4 only breaks into a 2 times 2. So remember, for the numbers here, I start with the 7. 7 happens once here and none here. So I at least need 1 7. Because remember, all the different factors have to be represented. Now look at the 2s. 2s happen twice here. 2s happen twice there. So the most that happens is 2 times in either of my numbers. So I need 2 2s. Now, compare to y. You got a y to the 3rd and a y to the 6th. Remember, the least common multiple, we go with the highest exponent. The highest exponent is a 6. So that's going to give me a y to the 6th. And then I compare my x's. On my x's, I got a 7 and a 9. The highest exponent is the 9. All right, y'all. So all we got to do now is multiply these numbers and bring down them variables and be done. So 7 times 2 is 14, times 2 is 28. So our least common multiple is going to be 28, y to the 6th, x to the 9th. Now remember, you could have did the calculator and done 28, 4, and that would have gave you the least common multiple of the 28, okay? All right, so then on number 9, they gave me 3 different numbers. They gave me 35, C6, A5. Then they're giving me a 5, C3, A5. Then they're giving me 21, C7, A3. All righty, so let's see if I was going to break down my numbers. Let's see, 35 would be 5 and 7. 5, I can't do nothing to it. And then 21 would be 3 and 7. So my least common multiple, let me start with my 5s. It happens once here and once here. So the most of 5 happens is 1 time. Next, I'll look at my 7s. Happens once here, once here. So I need at least 1 7. So that takes care of that. And then I also need a 3 that happens 1 time here. So I need at least 1 3. So now let's look at the C. I got a C6, C3, C7. The highest exponent is the 7. So I'm going to have a C7. On my A, I got a 5, and a 3. So the highest exponent is the 5. So y'all, all we got to do now is just multiply the numbers and be done. So 5 times 7 is 35. times 3 gives us a 105. C7, A5. Okay, so that's the trick on those, is just play with the numbers. And then when you're comparing the variables, see, the LCM is sort of opposite from the greatest common factor. On the greatest common factor, I went with the smallest exponents. But on the least common multiple, I'm going with these largest exponents, okay? All right, so the next one, add or subtract and simplify. So y'all, this is our number 10. So I got 4x minus 4y over x plus y. That's going to be plus x plus 11y over x plus y. So no matter what, since we have a common denominator on the bottom, that's going to be x plus y on the bottom. So we bring the common denominator over. Now on top, we're just going to add like terms. So this 4x will add to that 1x. So 4x's plus 1x will give us 5x. And then we add the y's together. This negative 4y will add to that positive 11y. So negative 4 plus 11y gives us a positive 7y. And y'all, this one I cannot go any further. So once you get that final fraction, it shouldn't simplify for you, and you'll be done. All right, next one says divide. So this one will be number 11. I got 30 c to the 8 minus 10 c to the 6 plus 25 c to the 4th. All that over 5c to the 4th. All right, so if you remember on this one, since I have a single term in the bottom, what I'm going to do is write this as 3 separate fractions. So I got my 30c to the 8 over 5c to the 4th minus my 10c to the 6th over 5c to the 4th. So every one of the parts on top will be put over that 5c to the 4th. And then 25c to the 4th over 5c to the 4th. Now we simplify each fraction. So 30 divided by 5 leaves me a 6. C8 over C4. Well, if you take the 8 minus 4, that's going to leave you 4. So that's going to be a 6 c to the 4th. Then it's minus. In the middle, 10 divided by 5 is 2. On my c, I got 6 minus 4, which leaves 2. All right, then we got plus 25 divided by 5 is 5. And y'all look here. 4 minus 4 is 0. So that means the c's technically cancel out on that one. So my final answer would be 6c to the 4th minus 2c squared plus 5. All right, so where you got, let's see, 1, 2. I got about 3 in a row doing division, but we're going to be doing the synthetic division to them, okay? So let me get my papers right. All right, y'all. So the next examples, this one actually says divide. So number 12 has parentheses, c squared plus 15c plus 56 divided by c plus 7. So although it says divide, I'm still going to do synthetic division. So remember, synthetic division, we write down the numbers. So first you want to make sure every term is here. So I got my c squared term, my c term, and my number. So the c squared don't have a number in front of it, so that's a 1. The c is a 15. My number is a 56. And then remember, we made the little box here. Over here was our c, but remember, c is this number, but it has an opposite sign than whatever number's in the parentheses. So since the 7 is positive in the parentheses, over here, we make it a negative. So remember, the sign has to be opposite what's in the parentheses. Now, these all had the same sign, okay? Only the part you're dividing by. All right, so remember, this will be my quotient. This in the box will be my remainder when I'm done. So we always brought down the first number. So the 1 comes down into the box. Then we'll take that 1, multiply by that -7, and put it in the next column. So 1 times -7 is -7. Then we add these together. So 15 and a -7 will give me an 8. Then I multiply again to get the next column. 8 times -7 is a -56. And y'all look at that. If you add them together, you get a remainder of 0. Now, these are the coefficients of the new polynomial. Remember, it always starts 1 degree less than the original. So since this is a c squared, this means that I got 1c plus 8. Since my remainder is 0, my final answer would be the c plus 8. And remember, this is the quotient under here, and that in the box is the remainder. Now, the next one actually says use synthetic division. So this will be our number 13. All right, y'all. So it's in parentheses again, but this time I got a c to the 3rd minus 8c squared plus 32c minus 9. And I'm going to divide that by a c minus 4. All right, so let me check to write my numbers down. So I got my c3 term, I got the c squared term, I got the c term, and the number. So nothing's missing. So let's write down our numbers. We got 1 for the c3, -8 for the c squared, 32 for the c, and then -9. We're going to draw our box. Now, this time, since that's C minus 4, change the sign of that 4 and make this a positive 4. All right, y'all. So here we go. Remember, this will be my quotient. In the box will be my remainder. So once again, we bring the 1 straight down. Multiply to get the next column. 1 times 4 is 4. Negative 8 plus a positive 4 will give us a negative 4. Now multiply again. Negative 4 times 4 is a negative 16. Add this up. 32 minus 16 would be 16. Multiply again to get the next column. 16 times 4 is 64. So let's see, that negative 9 plus that positive 64 leaves me a positive, what's that, 55. So this one will have a quotient and remainder. So the quotient starts 1 degree less than that original. So this will be my C squared, my C, and then my number. So I got 1C squared minus 4C plus 16, and this one has a remainder of 55. Okay, so remember, these are always in order, and they start 1 degree less. All right, y'all, let's see here. So one more doing synthetic division. A to the third minus 6a squared plus a 6. We're dividing that by a minus 4. All right, y'all, so watch this one. It's going to be the tricky one, your number 14, because I got my A3 term, I got the A squared term, but I'm missing the A term. And then I got my number. So I got a 1 for the A3, a negative 6 for the A squared. Remember, since I don't have an A term up here, I got to use a 0 as a placeholder. And then I bring down my 6. All right, I'm drawing my box now. Since that's an A minus 4, change the sign of the 4 and make that a positive 4. Now, we'll show you the number 14 writes the remainder different than this, okay? So watch how they do the number 14 here. So let's get our quotient and remainder first. So bring down the 1. 1 times 4 is 4. Negative 6 plus 4 is a negative 2. All right, y'all. Next column, I got to multiply. Negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. 0 and negative 8 leaves us a negative 8. And then finally, getting the last column, negative 8 times 4 is negative 32. All right, let's add that. That negative 32 and that 6 will leave us what? A negative 26. So let's get our quotient. We know our remainder is going to be negative 26. So this is going to start 1 degree less than the A third. So that means we got 1A squared minus 2A minus 8. And our remainder is negative 26. But on this one, what they do is they put plus or negative 26, and then you put that over the a minus 4. So this one's writing the remainder different than this one, okay? They're writing it as a polynomial on this one, to where here we just gave our quotient and then our remainder. And y'all, this one will have multiple choice for 14, okay? All righty, so let's see. Next, we started getting into the complex fractions. And y'all, this one says is simplify. So for 15, I got 3 plus 1 over 7 all over 3 minus 1/4. Now, I'm going to do this one by hand, but I'll also show you, since this one had all numbers, we can work this one on the calculator, okay? All righty, so to work this one, since I got all these extra fractions inside my fraction, I looked for a least common multiple. So I'm looking for a least common multiple between 7 and 4 because they're the denominators I'm concerned about. And the least common multiple, if you looked at that, would be 28. So multiply all 4 of these by 28. All right, y'all, so let's see here. No fraction here, so 28 times 3 gives us 84. Plus, now here, 28 will divide by 7. That 28 divides by 7, making that a 4. And 4 times 1 gives me a 4. All right, same thing on the bottom, no fraction here. So multiply 28 times 3, get 84. Minus, y'all here, 28 divided by 4 will turn that into a 7. And 7 times 1 is just a 7. So let's see what we got now. On top, 84 plus 4 gives me 88. 84 minus 7 on the bottom gives me a 77. And y'all, 88 and 77 will both divide by 11. So I'm basically dividing both of them by 11 to reduce my fraction. So 88 divided by 11 gives me 8 over 77 divided by 11 gives me a 7. Now I'm going to do this on the calculator real quick. Now on the calculator, the main thing you got to remember, you got to have parentheses around that numerator and that denominator. So y'all, here I go. Let me find my calculator. All right, so I'm going to start with my parentheses. On top, I had 3 plus 1 divided by 7, close parentheses, and then divide, open up parentheses for the bottom. That was 3 minus 1 divided by 4. Close parentheses. Now remember, when I hit enter, it's going to give me a decimal. But to turn the decimal into a fraction, you hit the math button. And since one's highlighted for fraction, you hit enter twice. And you get an 8 over 7. So it's always going to give us the most reduced answer. Alrighty, y'all. So that was 8/7. Alrighty, so coming up, pretty much the rest of these are going to be solving. So these examples will say solve, and then check if needed. Okay, so this will be our 16. So for 16, I got 5/y plus 3/y is going to equal 4. So y'all remember, 3 parts. When I had 3 parts, I found the least common multiple of the denominators. Well, this denominator says I only need 1y. This denominator says I only need 1y. And y'all, the 4, its denominator, you would treat it like it was a 1. So it don't bother us. What we need is at least 1y in our least common denominator. So single numbers we don't worry about because it's like they're over a 1, okay? So multiply all 3 of these by that y. So I'll have y times my 5/y plus y times my 3/y. That'll equal my y times my 4. So the reason we did that was to get rid of the fractions, remember? These y's cancel, turning into a 1. And 1 times 5, that's a 5. Plus, the y's in the middle cancel, turning into a 1. And 1 times 3 is a 3. Now, the right side, we didn't have a fraction, so we just multiplied a y times 4, and we get a 4y. So now we're just going to solve that for the y. So our first step would be to add like terms. So that 5 plus 3 will give me an 8. So 8 equals 4y. Remember, turn the 4y into a 1y by dividing both sides by that 4. So we'll have 8/4 equals 4y divided by 4. Y'all, let's see. 8 divided by 4 gives us a 2. Those y's cancel, turning into a 1. So I'm finally done. I get 2 equals y, which means y equals 2. So multiply everybody by that least common multiple, which is basically these denominators, okay? Now, we'll say the next 2, they say solve and check if needed. But these 2, I'm going to do differently because remember, watch this one. I got an x plus 1 over x. That's going to equal a 4/3. So remember, when I had one fraction equal to one fraction, I'm going to cross multiply this. So I'm going to cross multiply. I'm going to take this top, x plus 1 times that 3. So that'll be 3 times x plus 1. That's going to equal the other side, which will be this x times that 4, which will be what? A 4x. All right, so let's distribute to get rid of the parentheses. 3 times x is 3x plus 3 times 1 is 3. That's going to equal our 4x. So let's see, we got x's in a number here. We got x's on that side. So let's move this x to the other side and be done. So to move that 3x, we're going to subtract 3x from both sides. So those cancel. My 3 is left. Over here, 4 minus 3 leaves me 1x, and we're done. All right, y'all. Next one is the same thing. It's going to be one fraction equal to one fraction. I got 7 over 5y minus 3 is going to equal 4 over 9y. So one fraction equal to one fraction, I'm going to cross multiply again. So I'm going to take this top times that bottom. So 7 times 9y would be 63y on one side. That's going to equal this bottom times that top. So that'll be 4 times 5y minus 3. Now, if you want to avoid having to do this, you could do 4 times 5 is 20y minus 4 times 3. The reason I write it as parentheses is so that you realize that that 4 has to multiply by both of those parts, okay? So we can't do nothing with the 63y, so bring that down. So let's see what happens here. 4 times 5y gives us 20y. Minus 4 times 3 is 12. So I got a single y over here and a y and a number here. So I'm going to move this y to this side by subtracting 20y. All right, y'all. So let's see. 63 minus 20, that leaves me what? 43y. Over here, those cancel, and all that's left is that minus 12. All right, so I need the 43y to be 1y, so I'm going to divide both sides by that 43. So those cancel, giving me a 1y like I needed. Okay, that's going to stay negative. So let me think. I don't think that'll reduce, but if you want to check that, use that calculator. So I'm going to see if a negative 12 divided by 43 reduces. So remember, it's going to give me a decimal first, but then I'm going to turn the decimal back into a reduced fraction by hitting math and enter twice. And y'all look, it gives me negative 12 over 43. So that means that that answer does not reduce any. All right, y'all, so let's see. So now let me get my other page here. So it looks like we got 2 more to go, and these are going to be the formulas. All right, so this is number 19, and 19 says solve x over v equals d over b for the x. So now remember, capital letters got to be capitalized when you write them, and the small letters got to be written small when you write these answers, okay? But I'm going to cross multiply this. I'm going to take this x on top times that b on the bottom. So I'm going to get a capital X, little b. That's going to equal this capital V times that d. So that'll be a capital V times d. Now remember, I'm solving for the x. So to get this to be a 1x over here, since that b is being multiplied by the x, I'm going to have to divide by that b. So capital X, little b, divided by little b, will equal to capital V, little d, divided by the little b. So notice these b's now cancel, making a 1. So I'm left with 1x on the left side like I needed. These variables, none of these match, so I cannot do nothing to that. So that's going to be a capital V, little d, over to b. So y'all, this one was number 19. And 20 is the same thing. So let's see what they want to solve for on it. So I'm going to bring that down here. So 20 says solve V equals 716.5y divided by m squared. We're solving that for the m squared. So y'all, if I want this to look like a fraction equal to a fraction, all I got to do under the v is put a 1 down there. So now I'm going to cross multiply it. This v on top multiplies by the m squared. So I'm going to have a v m squared. That's going to equal this 1 times the 716.5y, which is just going to be 716.5y. And y'all notice, they just want me to solve for this m squared here. So this m squared is right here being multiplied by the v. So to get that to be a 1m squared, we're going to divide both sides by the v. So notice the v's cancel, making that a 1. So I end up with my m squared. Once again, over here, the y and the v don't match, so I cannot cancel nothing. So that's going to stay 716.5y all over my v. But if you notice, cross multiply these things, then solve for that variable that you need on them, okay? All right, y'all. So let me see. So yeah, that was number. So that's the 20 questions you got to know for my test. All right, so y'all, this one will be due what, Sunday night. And then next week, like I said, we start dealing with radical equations or radical expressions, which deal with the square roots and stuff, okay? So it'll be a little bit something different than all factoring, okay? All right, y'all. So do y'all have any questions on this test 4? Y'all realize we just got 3 more weeks left, and then y'all are done with this transitional algebra, right? And then y'all will be stepping into your college algebra in the fall. All right, y'all. So I'm going to stop my recording.